24 hours and said, 22 years old, what do I have to lose?
Yeah.
Right? If it doesn't work out, I go back into construction. Most people don't think about it.
Yeah.
Right?
It happens.
Everything gets delivered, right?
Mm-hmm.
From people, right? That's when you give birth, it's the delivery room.
Yep.
To chairs we're in, table, TV.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, man, everything gets delivered.
Yeah, even on your way out.
Yeah.
They deliver you to the to the cemetery.
And people don't think about it. We're a premium service, no doubt about it. I tell people up front, I'm not the least expensive game in town, but you will never have service like ours in Miami. My dad is not the type of person that's just going to say, here you go, son.
Mm-hmm.
He told me time and time again, if I don't think you're ready by the time I'm ready to retire, I'm selling it to somebody else. This is Mark Seltzer with Comet Delivery Services, and you're watching the Last2First Podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the next episode on the Last2First Podcast, where we bring you the latest, the greatest, the innovators moving this industry from last to first. I'm excited to be in a new location today, new studio, new set. We're down in sunny Orlando, Florida, and I've got a guest in the house today that's going to blow your socks off. I'm joined with another second-generation owner like myself who has come up in this industry and is making some waves now that he's in full control of the operation. So y'all meet Mark Seltzer. Mark, welcome to the podcast.
Jason, appreciate you having me, man.
Love, man.
Thank you.
So, Mark, you are the president of Comet Delivery Services.
Yes, sir.
Second-generation owner. You guys are based down in Miami.
Correct.
But some recent expansion to the Orlando market, which we'll get to in a second.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, man, just welcome, man. Appreciate you coming on.
I appreciate you having me, man. Excited to finally be able to do this. You know, I've definitely seen the show, and you've had some wonderful guests on, and just looking forward to having a conversation with you.
Yeah, that's what it's all about, man. It's about having a conversation. We'll laugh, we'll joke, we'll get some fun stories. I'm sure you got some things you want to get off. And but I want to start off talking about kind of your evolution into the role you play now. And I asked you off camera, how's your dad doing? I met your dad years ago, and we did some work together. But you're not running the show. Tell me how your dad's doing. And
Dad's doing fantastic. Finally retired after 47 years, and finally getting to enjoy his life. Right, he built this from the ground up. I mean, started in a 1-bedroom apartment.
Damn.
We're in 35,000 square feet now in Miami, and it's just a testament to him.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm glad that he's finally getting to enjoy life.
Yeah.
And spending time with my mom. He's a grandfather now, which he is thrilled about, because as he's building this company, my sister and I are growing up. We used to joke around, give him a hard time that, you know, we've got a single mom here.
Yeah.
Because he's constantly working.
Yeah.
You know, he was the night dispatch. He was the weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Our phone would ring 2:00 in the morning because we run 24/7.
Right.
So it was all him. And I'm glad I get to do this for him.
Yeah.
And now, don't get me wrong, he's still.
I was gonna say, is he really retired? I've been around your dad a couple of times.
So his first day of actual retirement was January 1st, 2025.
Okay.
And his whole thing was, I'll be in the office, 2-3 times a week. I'll come in, say hi, how are things doing?
Yeah.
He was in the office a total of 6 days last year.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
I would not have guessed that.
Yeah.
I would definitely say at least 30 days.
No, one of them was because he was in the area doing something. He just wanted to pop in and say hi.
Yeah.
The other one was because I was working on a project and I wanted his help.
Yeah.
Just because I'm the president doesn't mean you don't need help, right?
Yeah. No, for sure. Well, look, I'm glad he's well. I'm glad he's enjoying his time because, like my dad, I tell him all the time, like, you've worked so hard. You've put a lot of, blood, sweat, and tears into building something. Like, you should enjoy your golden years, right? Go do it. So I'm glad he's actually doing that. Let's go back. I want to make sure we spell out Comet Delivery and give the audience a sense of the company's profile. So tell us kind of who you guys are, where you operate, what you focus on, maybe the size, scope of the company.
Sure. So Comet Delivery started in June of 1977. The actual backstory is, so Stephen's father, my father's father, was an attorney by trade, and he kind of fell out of love with it.
Mm-hmm.
And he had a buddy of his that said, hey, look, the courier industry is booming right now, especially in Miami where all the attorneys' offices are.
Yeah.
Documents need to be run. And they started. my father was just getting out of college. He's a contractor by trade.
Okay.
Went to Clemson for construction.
Okay. All right.
Was in the middle of building a high school down in Miami. And my grandfather's partner had a stroke and was basically rendered immobile. And my grandfather said, "This isn't what I got into this for." So he said to my dad, "Steven, what do you think?" And my dad thought about it for about 24 hours and said, 22 years old, what do I have to lose?
Yeah.
Right? If it doesn't work out, I go back into construction.
Yeah.
And that was it.
Dang.
That,
So your dad started with his dad.
Yes.
Your grandfather.
Yep. That is
Oh,
correct.
I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the focus was primarily on was it servicing the legal sector?
It was the same day courier type services.
Mm-hmm.
So still the same day that we offer now. But back then it was all small parcel.
Yeah.
Wasn't really a need for warehousing or freight.
Mm-hmm.
Everything was small parcel
Yeah.
and just running from office to office. And at that point, they had one or two drivers. But it was basically just my dad getting out there, rented a van.
Mm-hmm.
He was making the drops himself and getting your name out there.
Yeah. What 'cause you hear the story saying, I bet we're going to have moments like this in this episode where I'm like,
I'm sure it's
same thing for me.
Too similar. Back off, right?
Very similar. My parents are the same way. My dad would drop my mom off at work, and he would go use the car, make deliveries, and go pick her back up, etc. But what's your earliest memories of that? Like as a child growing up, when do you remember like, oh, dad is involved in this business?
So he would have stories around the dinner table because that was his thing. He always made it home for dinner.
Yeah.
That was, he'd come home for dinner and then he'd go back in his office and finish up the day.
Same. Yeah.
And you always heard stories, the frustrations, the highs, the lows. But I remember those morning phone calls,
Your TMS doesn't have it. Your third-party admin system doesn't have it. A system of record missing the most important data isn't a system of record at all. Credentials and compliance records are trapped in silos. Result, an uncredentialed driver gets dispatched. In life sciences, that mistake can kill a company. GigSafe. Complete the record.
The 2 o'clock in the morning, you had the landline, so everybody's hearing it.
Yeah.
And that was really it because you get woken up all times of the night.
Yep.
But you understand it. Even as a kid, I understood why. It doesn't make it easier. You don't really understand what's going on to the full extent.
Right.
But those are definitely my earliest memories, just knowing my dad was available to his clients 24/7.
Yeah. Yeah, say you mentioned the landline. It took me back because we don't even have landlines now. Do you have a landline?
I do not.
Yeah.
But they are still a thing, and they're actually bringing them back.
What?
Yeah, so it's now a thing for younger kids so that parents don't have to worry about their kids being on cell phones. And it's made specifically for the younger generation, and they'll have, pre-programmed numbers.
Okay. On like a house phone.
Yeah.
So like who are the providers? Like AT&T,
There's
Spectrum, who's on the landlines.
I don't think they're in with those big players, but
Yeah. We're talking about kids. You have young. We'll get to your family story, but so we're getting way off track. But
that's the name of the game, right?
When your kids get old enough. So we did Gab. This is GABB Gab phone.
Okay.
Which is a non-internet based phone, so they can download pre-approved apps.
Okay.
They can video call a select group of people. And then they can call anyone they want, but there's no way to get on the Wi-Fi.
I like that.
There's no way. So I'm like, so check out the Gab.
I certainly will.
Gab, you need to get a promo. I need to get some kind of love for that. But all right, so go back. So when did you get into the business? So I want to kind of hear your kind of origin story to when you formally became involved in the actual last mile.
Yeah, happy to. So I started working at Comet part-time a week before my 19th birthday. I was home from college. I'd worked in restaurants. I'd done retail.
Yeah.
And I said, I need to do something else. my parents never really let us go to the office when we were kids. They said, it's boring. What do you want to go there for? And I said, well, let me find out.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I started pushing paperwork, pulling orders in the warehouse. I'd take orders from time to time, but that wasn't my main thing.
Yeah.
It was, it was the bare minimum type stuff, right? Like, oh, my kid's home from college. Let's just give him something to do.
Yeah, yeah.
I was getting paid minimum wage.
Yeah, yeah.
It wasn't, it gave me something to do. And that was really it. Put a couple bucks in my pocket.
Yeah. Now, did you, so you're 18s when you first started, right? Did you leave and then come back at a later point?
Yeah. So I was going to school in Tampa, University of Tampa.
All right.
But I'd come home for breaks. And every time I'd come home for a break, I'd go into work with the office, and it's kind of just where I fell in love with it. And I said, okay, I can do this.
Yeah.
I'd hear how my dad is talking to clients, seeing how the team interacts, really learning what logistics is. Most people don't think about it.
Yeah.
Right?
It happens.
Everything gets delivered, right? From people, right? That's when you give birth, it's the delivery room.
Yep.
To chairs we're in, table, TV. Oh, man, everything gets delivered.
Yeah, even on your way out.
Yeah.
They deliver you to the to the cemetery.
And people don't think about it.
Yeah.
It's just, oh, well, it's there. But how to get there? And I really like that aspect of being the person behind the scenes and helping that, come to fruition.
Yeah. Yeah. So when I guess your first official role when you came back after undergrad was what? What was your title? You remember that?
I didn't even really have a title.
Just kinda like, do this, do that.
Do boy. Yeah, that's exactly what it was.
Yeah.
Of course, my dad made me feel special. I had a little back office. But really my first job was setting up our TMS system because we were transitioning. He was with this program that he'd been with for forever. It was called TDI. It doesn't even exist anymore. And then he set us up with Key Software Accelerator.
Okay.
And that was my first job, full time. Was getting everything programmed.
Transition it.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. And it took a little more than a year because the way he had everything running was he was on a zone system where it wasn't, zone A, zone B, zone C. It was Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach were split into about 65 different zones. And every zone to zone combination had its own rate structure. And we're running cars, vans, and trucks, the occasional tractor trailer, flatbed.
Yep.
So I had to make sure all these were programmed correctly.
Yeah.
All the additional extra charges, surcharges, making sure everything is smooth so that when we flip that switch, the client didn't know.
Yeah.
Right? It's nothing different to them. Yeah, of course, it's different to the operations team.
Yeah. I want to dig into that because that's we have many moments. Like that was the very first thing I did too. My first project was I was a special projects manager, and the first project was look at our technology platform. And I eventually changed it and went through the same thing. And what was my question to you is what was the most valuable thing you learned in that process? Because for me, not only was I able to learn the business through a new technology platform and how things couldn't work, like what the possibilities were with technology now, but then we got into the pricing side and I started really understanding all these custom rate charts. I mean, we must have had, I kid you not, like 40 different custom rate charts. Yep. And they were primarily zone based. Yeah. And when I started digging into it and asking my dad, how did we come up with this? Because, the problem I found with the zone based price, I'll go on a tangent for a second, is it was like a zip code to zip code pricing. But, some of these zip codes can be, 4 or 5 miles apart. Picture this. You hand a job off to one of your agents, but your customer is tracking, it completely disappears. Your drivers, now they give perfect visibility, but agents, it can get dark. That's why Different makes agent deliveries look like your own drivers. Simply send a browser link via SMS, your agent clicks it and captures the POD. Customer tracking continues seamlessly. Built by operators who've actually worked with agents for over 35 years. They know tracking can't just go dark during these handoffs. See exactly how it works at deliverdifferent.com/Last2First. A territory. And so it really didn't make sense. And it was hard to sell it, hard to memorize. It was just all over the place.
You can't because how do you explain that?
How do you explain that?
You can't.
Yeah.
And that was the most frustrating part. And I saw that too.
Yeah.
Which is why a couple of years ago, and I told this to my dad. I said, how am I supposed to sell this in the future? Everybody is looking for speed, right? They don't care about the sales process. They just want to get things from A to B.
Yeah.
And I said, I need a better way to explain this. I said, I really think in the future, we're going to have to make a rate per mile, because if you're on that zone to zone chart, you can't explain it to your clients. How are you explaining it to the driver what they're getting paid?
Yeah.
And he worked on that for better half of 2 years. Now it was on weekends and, things where we had free time. It wasn't like, hey, every day we're meeting and giving an hour to this.
Yeah.
But we got to the point where our rates were similar, close enough for government work, as they say, right? Getting it done.
Yeah.
And since I put it into effect probably mid 2024.
Okay.
I still have clients on what I call our legacy rate chart, which is still the zone to zone, because if they're cool with it, why am I going to flip it up?
Yeah.
Right? Let them be on that. But I have changed, especially the drivers, to the per mile chart, and driver retention has been much better. My operations team and dispatch doesn't hit every call with, well, what am I getting paid? Well, what am I getting paid for this?
Yeah.
They know what they're getting paid for.
Yeah.
They at least have the base rate, and everything else is plus plus.
Yeah. So it's more transparent. It's easy to communicate to customers and drivers who are customers, right?
And you hit the nail on the head. I mean, it's communication.
Yeah.
I think my team is sick and tired of hearing that word. It's communication.
That's what we do. Yeah.
You'd be surprised, though. And maybe it's because I'm in Miami, and Miami is its own world. I mean, honestly, there's nothing like it. I hear stories from people that are in all these different markets, and I'm scratching my head.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Yeah.
Like, I don't get that in Miami, right? It's the way we see Comet is we're a premium service, no doubt about it. I tell people up front, I'm not the least expensive game in town, but you will never have service like ours in Miami.
Yeah.
I'm dealing with people that are running, a penny a pound, no waiting time, no communication. I say good luck. If something changes, I'm here.
Let's go into, because I think this is something that we often talk about. We're obviously here for a conference. You'll hear this scuttlebutt, right?
Yeah.
Of whether it's cut the rates to the bottom, or you and I were talking before we got on camera, how last year was all about the cheapest price.
That was it.
Right? I think probably you could argue the last 2 years, you could probably make the argument that's been that way. As it relates to, and I'm going to tie this together, as it relates to the different types of pricing structures you have in place, and trying to offer a quality service, as you're saying, to your clients, like, how do you balance those two things? Because, it's the gift and the curse of our industry, right? Everything's customized. So you're trying to price everything for a certain customer. But then it's also difficult to sometimes find the customers that value real service, right? Like everything is treated as a commodity in the space a lot of times.
Yep.
So how do you try to navigate that?
That's a solid question. And I don't know that there's an easy way to answer it, because I haven't found it yet. I'm still working on that. My dad worked on that. Again, because of the market we're in. It's different. What I've seen over the last couple of years is companies based in Miami expect Miami type services. It is that inexpensive, if it gets there type mindset. What's really opened the door, I started doing more online marketing, which instead of the cold calling and the door to door, which I was talking to my dad this morning, and he said, "Oh, what are you going to do after the podcast?" And I said, "I don't know. I'm figuring it out." I said, because I've been talking to people, and I've been told by multiple sources that, especially in Orlando, they do not like having their doors knocked on, right? It's basically they'll take your card and say, "Don't ever use this person. They came and knocked on my door."
Yeah.
He's saying, "Okay, well, go back and make some phone calls." People don't want that anymore.
Yeah.
And I've realized that in Miami, it's you get what you pay for.
Yeah.
But they're there, right? They're there. So if something goes wrong, they kind of have more pull. It's those companies that are now out of state, out of the country, that they actually need service providers that they can rely on.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of where I've found my niche.
So it's like going outside
Yeah.
to come back. It's like an outside in game.
That's exactly.
And it's, one of my talking points, my note card here was talk about your active social media presence. So let's just jump right there, right? Because it's a real thing. I think it's funny. I was talking to someone last night. We were at Topgolf last night. I'm moving this mic, so I hope I didn't mess up too much. And it's an owner of a company here in Florida, and he's more of an operations type. And he was talking about some of the friction with his salesperson, who I think also maybe is a minority owner of the business too, and the different styles and approaches to selling, right? And he's like, and he was giving me a story about how he actually walked in to someone's office, but it wasn't a cold visit, but they had found him online first and reached out.
Okay.
And he happened to be in the area, and he walked in and actually closed the deal that landed like $20K a month. Solid deal, right?
Yeah.
So, but with the part that I pulled into the story, that I keyed in on was the customer found him online first, reached out, and then warmed himself up. So to me, that's the power of like social media. So I want to ask you kind of what triggered you to start doing this? You kind of gave us the outcome of that in a small example, but what other results you've seen from that, and kind of why do you focus on that? Why is it important for you to do that?
My name is Dominic Simone. I'm the Senior Vice President of Client Services here at SCI.
Can you briefly share your background and experience in the logistics industry?
I've been in the transportation industry for over 48 years, starting in my family's courier company, and now with SCI over 14 years.
What do you think sets SCI apart in the logistics space?
I think what sets SCI apart is our unique combination of technology and customer service. Our in-house IT team has created programs that enable our customers to quickly enroll, to capture data very fast in order to allow them to move forward in their business. In the meantime, everything is backed up by our customer service group that's there to answer questions and work with people.
So the reason I started it was, again, I started more of an SEO online marketing type campaign. And I got off of the Facebooks and all that. That was really the only social media I was ever on was Facebook.
Yeah.
It was just so much to keep up with. You got your Instagram and
Yeah.
whatever. I never even bothered. My wife made me an Instagram so that she could send me fun videos. And she's still like, hey, did you see that video I sent you? No.
I'm sorry.
I don't even have my notifications turned on.
Yeah.
But then I was like, all right, LinkedIn, because it's supposed to be more for business. Supposed to be one of my least favorite words, right?
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
supposed to is never what actually is,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Like I tell my team, oh yeah, well, I think my driver's there. He's supposed to be there. That doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
You know,
Is he there or not?
Is he there or not?
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
That is black or white.
Yes.
So I started doing LinkedIn more for the SEO part, more visibility, because what I've learned from Google Analytics is all of that loops together.
Mm-hmm.
And that was really the main reason that I started posting on LinkedIn. And I try at least once a week. My goal is 2 or 3 times.
Mm-hmm.
But I also try to make it more focused, not just, hey, everybody, hey, here I am. I got to have a reason for it.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's a cool project I've done, something I'm trying to push towards,
Mm-hmm.
which is why you'll see kind of the similar concepts. I stress our level of service,
Yeah.
where we service. I'm not just trying to get anybody and everybody. I want somebody who actually needs help,
Mm-hmm.
because that's, at the end of the day, that's what I'm here to do, is help.
Yeah. I love the elephant.
You
the,
do?
the caricature.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if it's where the inspiration come from, but what I love about what you said is, and that's when I talk to people about social media, I'm like, look, it's a tool. You have to really learn how to use it. And the people I see using it the best, they're not directly trying to sell something. They're just being authentically telling their journey,
Mm-hmm.
right? So whether I open a location or I just had this problem, like, people respond to people in authenticity. So I think you've done a really good job, and I'm glad to see that you're getting some results from that.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
And I'd like to say that it's a lot to do with that. I'm going to give a shout out to Steve Howard there at the WCA, because he's been a big proponent of helping me get out into that marketplace.
That's awesome.
He's a connector. He is. And I mean, he always has been. I mean, how long have you known Steve for?
Oh, 20 years.
Yeah.
20 years. I served with Steve on the board. I'm got to get him on this podcast. We're going to make it happen soon. But shout out to Steve. Steve and I we got several stories. I'm going to hold for his episode.
I think lots of people have stories with Steve.
There's a lot of Steve Howard stories for sure. But he's one of one, and he is a massive connector, very, very smart guy, but knows how to have to party with a purpose.
Right.
I think
and he knows who to connect with whom.
Mm-hmm.
Right. It's not just, hey, this person needs deliveries. Well, I'm going to go to Comet because they do deliveries. No. It's, hey, they need a bonded delivery. I know Mark's got this, bonded service that he can, rock out for him.
Mm-hmm.
That's where he knows.
Yeah.
Because he's got those people skills and the personal skills to actually dive deep and
to do it.
Find out what somebody needs.
Yeah. I want to go back into your story because I'm really interested in the second generation piece, and we have a lot of that in this industry. And it's interesting too because we're coming to a point where you see another wave of kind of ownership looking at exiting and succession planning. Obviously, like myself, you were able to take over. So first question is, you are 100% owner of Comet today?
I am, as of January 1st, 2025.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
How was that? Because, you have different ways to do that and to structure that. And sometimes that's not as easy as people may think it is to transition it. So how was that experience for you?
It was tough. We went back and forth with it for a long time because my dad is not the type of person that's just going to say, here you go, son.
Mm-hmm.
He told me time and time again, if I don't think you're ready by the time I'm ready to retire, I'm selling it to somebody else.
Mm.
He said, I've worked too hard for too long to let some punk kid, even my own son, come in and not know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And again, we went back and forth because it's been tumultuous. I mean, for how long in this industry? He also didn't want to set me up for failure.
Yeah.
Which it just got to the point where it had to happen. I was running the operation anyways. He was starting to take time off, which is what I always wanted for him. And it was time.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the format we did it, I bought it from him. There's no gift. There's no, let's figure this out. This is a business transaction.
Mm-hmm.
And I wouldn't have it any other way.
Yep.
The last thing that a concern of mine has always been, well, that's just the boss's kid. No. Time out. I'm the boss's kid and he kicks my ass over it.
So a lot of people in the space, they talk about enterprise clients, but that's really a different level. How does Dropoff achieve enterprise solutions today?
Yeah, so enterprise clients really want a few key things. They want consistency, they want scalability, and they want transparency. And we deliver on all three of those things. So we're consistent with the experience from the West Coast to the Midwest, to the East Coast, to the Southwest. Everyone gets a consistent level of experience, and that's a hard thing to do when you're in 40 plus cities.
Give me an example of a enterprise client that you've had success with.
Yeah, we have a really large enterprise account that's grown really fast in the healthcare space, and a lot of people have to have their eyes on those deliveries in real time, and we were probably understaffed for that, and now we're overstaffed for it. So it's really getting ahead of it and staying one step ahead of the client versus one step behind.
So if you're operating at scale or you're planning to, your delivery partner, they really matter. Check out dropoff.com and learn why they've been doing enterprise from day one.
Man, right?
It's not people think that because you're the son of the owner, or daughter of the owner, there's some advantage. A lot of times it's not.
A lot of times there's not, but a lot of times there are, and I think that's where the misconception comes in. People like you and me, we work for it,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's just who we are.
For sure.
It's how we were raised. I talked to plenty of other people that, my parents gave me their company. What are you doing with it now? Oh, well, I'm going to Barcelona this week. And I don't know how you can do that.
Yeah.
It's your family's legacy
Mm-hmm.
is really what it comes down to.
Yep.
I don't want to let my family down, my employees down. I mean, there have been people with us for over 20 years
Yeah.
that, have seen me since I was, knee high to a grasshopper here.
Mhm.
And what kind of thanks is that to them for all their hard work over the years if I'm just going to go out and mess around,
Yeah.
you know?
You for me, when I kind of went to that role, I guess it's like anything else. Like when you go from like being the backup to the starter, you inherit the responsibility. It's the opportunity and the responsibility. And
Absolutely.
in our cases, a lot of these folks, we grew up like this as a child, and so they've known you in a different light, and now all of a sudden you somewhat in control of their fate and how they provide for their family. So it's an incredible responsibility. And what I want to ask you about is when you assume control of that, right? And I want to get some insight on what the company's makeup was at that time, because I want to get to what you're doing now. But how do you reinvent a 48-year-old company? I think at the time when you were taking over,
Yeah.
right? That's a long history that you've got to respect the past, but also build for the future.
Right.
So how did you navigate?
I don't think it's about reinvention,
Okay.
right? Because what my dad did is solid. He laid the foundation. He had a great business. It was good for him. Of course, times are changing. You need to adapt.
Yeah.
You need to grow. But as far as reinvention, that's not my goal. My goal is to honor that legacy and improve upon it. His deep down, the old school mentality is client satisfaction. You can't beat that. That is, to me, that's the name of the game.
Yeah.
If I can get that client to keep calling me, I've done my job. Because a lot of people don't care anymore. A lot of people are saying, well, that doesn't exactly fit my model. Fix your model, right? This is not a black and white industry.
Yeah.
We are all shades of gray.
Yep.
Adapt. If I can do anything to assist a client, I go out of my way. To give you an example, last night, I had a guy call me, couldn't even tell you, it was probably 6-8 months ago.
Okay.
He said, hey, Mark, I found you online. I do a lot of these AOG parts, they're after hours.
What's AOG for the audience?
Aircraft on ground.
Got it.
I know you guys do expedite. He goes, is this something you do? I'm very honest with people because what's the point of lying? They're going to find out eventually. They're never going to trust you again.
Yeah.
Right? I'm always upfront about these things. Look, I don't do a lot of AOG. That is not my bread and butter. But yes, we are expedite. If you're in a pinch, more than happy to help you. I said, okay, great. Let's set up an account. I hadn't heard from this guy until last night. I get a call. I'm laying in bed at the hotel, getting ready to go to sleep. It's 10:30. My night dispatcher calls me. He goes, do you know this guy? And he's telling me, the company name. The company name did not sound familiar, but he has a very distinct name.
Okay.
And I said, what's his name? And he told it to me. And I said, I know exactly who it is. He said, well, I can't find his account. And I said, look, I've had a few conversations with the guy. I believe he has an account set up. I'm willing to take the risk, get the job done. It was not a short run. It was from Miami to Tampa at 10:30 at night.
Oh.
But he's calling me because he's got an emergency for his client. I'm going to take care of him.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah. I love the power of that story because it talks about it talks about the difference between watering your garden and kind of being patient and letting that plant, that fruit yield, but also being ready, willing, and capable when your number's called, right? And the thing about that to me is, and do the clients always value and appreciate that? We're kind of going back to a previous point, right? It's like we do jump through a lot of hoops for clients in this industry, and that's why I think we all fall in love with it, because it's a certain level of care that we bring to the table that I would argue that many of our other competitors, upper stream, the big boys, it's hard to get that, right? But the downside of that is like you don't see that's always valued, and it's kind of like, man, like why should we care so much if you're not gonna, show love back, type of thing.
Right. And it's true. I agree with you. We are not valued.
Yeah.
There are certainly some partners that do. But for the most part, we're a delivery company. We're a dime a dozen. That's, I compete in Miami with guys that are just a truck. It's them in a truck, right? They have no overhead. They have nothing else. So a lot of times I'll lose out to things like that. I'll give you an example. There was one towards the end of last year. I got a cold call. They were looking for something. It was 6 pallets, 8,000 pounds. And I remember it, and it was going like 10 miles. I said, okay, I quoted him $150. Comes back. I got it for 65. I said, okay, if I can be of any assistance, I'm here. Because again, he didn't care about actually, the quality of the service. He's just getting it done.
Yeah.
Which is why service failures are common, because a lot of people, they're okay with it.
Yeah.
People like us, I'm not okay with it. That is, that's our whole reason for being here. You service your client.
Yeah.
You take care of them.
Yeah.
Because if you don't take care of them, they're going to hear from it on the back end. Now, do they care? They might not. But for me, I want to make sure that my client is properly taken care of.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it means something to you.
It means everything.
Yeah. Everything.
This industry is it's changing for sure.
Yeah.
The old adage was, it's what you know. It's not what you know. And that's been the case now for years. And it's more prevalent than ever that it's who you know. It's building those relationships.
For sure.
Because again, anybody can go out, buy a truck, and call themselves a delivery service. So it's really making sure that you're true to your word and taking care of your clients.
Yeah.
I can't say that enough, right?
Yeah.
I think I've repeated myself 5 times now.
Yeah. Nah, but that's the mantra. That's the one that wins.
Yeah.
Tell me, I know you have a interesting delivery story. Like, what was your craziest delivery story or experience that you had?
So I've had plenty, but there's one in particular that definitely stands out.
Okay.
I think it was back in 2016, 2017, Hurricane Matthew.
Maybe Matthew. I think Matthew.
So huge storm.
You know where we live at because we can remember these hurricanes,
right?
Where you used to live at.
And so we do a lot with the cruise lines. One of the major cruise lines. We are their #1 provider in South Florida.
What do you do exactly?
We do everything from ship spares to their landed goods to anything that's not temperature controlled, basically.
Okay. So bringing things to the ship
to
when
the
they're
ship
ready to take off,
directly
and maybe taking stuff off.
Absolutely, to their
dock.
warehouse, from their vendors to their vendors, a little bit of everything. We've actually been fortunate. We have a wonderful relationship with them. They have a vendors cruise every 4 or 5 years, and they take their top 100 vendors from around the world. These guys are the ones, giving them all their petroleum and all their freight forwarders and these massive companies. And we've been fortunate enough to be invited on all these vendors cruises.
How about that?
We're this little mom and pop shop down in Miami. But again, it's those clients that value the relationship and value the service. So hurricane was coming, and they were kind enough, and I thought I'm glad to have partners like this. The islands were going to get absolutely hammered. A lot of their employees' families were from the islands. They were going to take one of their ships and go pick up the families on the islands and go wait out the storm in the middle of the ocean.
Okay.
President of the cruise line was going to be on that ship. They had about an hour and a half before they would no longer be able to safely leave the port. At that point, they realized, I don't know if I can say this or not, but they said, oh shit, we don't have any toilet paper on board.
Nowhere?
Mm-mm.
That's a problem.
That's a problem.
Up the creek?
Uh-huh. So we had about an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Get a truck over to their warehouse, pick up a truckload of toilet paper,
and
get it to the ship. And that was that's our service.
Yeah.
That is what we deliver.
You keep the shit away.
Yeah. That's right.
That was bad.
But you know what? That's it. You know, we get people out of trouble.
Yeah,
You know, that could have been disastrous.
that could have been disastrous. Yeah, I should have said you helped clean up
Yeah.
their ish.
Hey,
Yeah.
you know, whatever you want to say, it gets the point across,
It gets the
right?
point, yeah, but that dependability in the last critical moment,
That's it.
You're able to step up and service the need.
That's it.
Yeah.
You know, it's because we also have that expertise in the area because, again, we're local,
Mm-hmm.
right? So our drivers know the area.
Yeah.
We know the area. My team does. You know the best way to get places. And that's a huge part. You get these companies that are in, 20 different states. Well, do they know the best way to move their vehicles around town?
Yeah.
Or are they just going to go based on whatever GPS tells them?
Yep.
I mean, I used GPS to get here today. I'd never been here.
Yeah.
I didn't know where I was going.
Yep.
Because, again, I'm not from the area. Being from the area definitely
Makes a
has
difference.
advantages.
Yeah. So, we talk about the area.
Yeah.
Like I know you recently, as a part of kind of taking over and not reinventing, but building upon the history of which is your father and your grandfather started. You expanded into a new market. I believe it's the first time you guys expanded physically outside of the corporate office area in Miami.
That is correct.
So you have a new location here in Orlando.
I do.
Tell me just when what led to the decision to expand, and then how long ago was that? Maybe
About a year.
about a year.
Yeah.
So then walk us through maybe over the course of that year, the ups and the downs of a new market expansion.
Absolutely. Because there are plenty of them, right?
Yeah, like did a customer bring you here? Did you come here before? Like, give me the whole.
So I had been thinking about it for a long time because you're in a single market for, half a century.
Mm-hmm.
People know who you are, right? There's only so many new opportunities to actually hit in that market, right? I'm not talking about companies from out of state or out of the country.
Mm-hmm.
We're well known in Miami.
Mm-hmm.
And people use us, love our service. And that's why we've had accounts for over 30, 40 years that
Mhm.
still use us to this day.
Yeah.
If I could bring that to a new market and, expand our reach to help those clients in Miami that, have used us for forever, why wouldn't I?
Mm-hmm.
Now, finding the right market was key. And we did expand at one point into the Stewart St. Lucie area. We had a client that asked us to do so. They had a main plant there, and things were rocking and rolling, and COVID happened, right? And all the volume, because what a lot of that office was doing was a lot of home deliveries.
Yeah.
That stopped.
Mm-hmm. Abruptly, probably.
Yeah. So, unfortunately, that office it wasn't viable anymore. So we had to let that one go.
Mm-hmm.
And it hurt,
Yeah.
but nothing ventured, nothing gained. And I took what we learned from that experience and started to apply it here in Orlando. And I asked my clients before I did anything. My original thought was Tampa, more because I know that they do have a port over there.
Mm-hmm.
I know Tampa is really starting to grow. It was also a personal reason. I went to school in Tampa.
Yeah.
I got friends over there.
Hang out with the boys a little bit.
I love the city.
Yeah.
To me, it was second home.
Uh-huh.
But I called my clients, especially the top ones, and I said, look, this is what I'm thinking. If I were to open a second office, what would be most beneficial to you?
Mm-hmm.
I'd say 80% said Orlando. And
Why was that? Was it just they weren't getting the service they needed done, or they were expanding or growth opportunities?
they had providers here.
Yeah.
But again, it's our level of service that is what they rely on. They know
Mm-hmm.
if you give it a comment, it's going to get done, right? If there's issues, we're going to call you. If it goes great, we're going to call you.
Mm-hmm.
There is no hiding. You see the job through. If somebody's angry, I pick up the phone, right? I'm not hiding. So I think it's that level of dependability.
Yeah.
And
They
it's
want that service here in this
Exactly.
market. Yeah.
exactly.
So a year
Mhm.
into it, you're telling me you have you've kind of converted someone from like the air freight world to be like your terminal manager here.
Yep.
How has the expansion gone so far?
It's been better than I thought it would. I was expecting it to be extremely rocky the first year. I've been fortunate enough that I've been able to rely on some great partners, other people that you know as well, that I'll get into here in a second. Um, and I was actually in the black my first year up here.
Wow.
Not only wrong, it wasn't by a whole lot,
Yeah.
but
But shit, I mean, first year.
I looked at my numbers at the end of the year and I was kind of like, is that really what happened?
Yeah.
And
And now, how did you achieve that? So were these the customers you were servicing in the Miami area that came through and started using you here in Orlando?
They did.
Picked up new business here?
even the ones that said, we really don't have a whole lot in Orlando, it magically appeared,
Mm.
and I'm happy for it.
Mhm.
Picked up a couple steady runs, and it just picked up some new clients. Again, it's a lot of that online marketing.
Mhm.
It worked. And
Yeah.
I'm a firm believer in slow and steady,
Yeah.
right? What's taken us 48, 49 years in Miami, I don't think it's going to take us that long in Orlando, but if it does, I'm happy for it too because I'm setting up for the future,
Mhm.
right? Even if it's not for me.
Yeah. What's interesting about this, most people, when I talk to them about expansion, they're expanding because a customer brought them, like literally going into a market with a book of business that they can build on. Sounds like yours was a little different. Although you had existing customers, there was no contract that you won that brought you here.
No.
And so your approach is I got to build this, from the ground up, right? And a lot of times it's like the tortoise or the hare, right? Like it takes longer,
Yeah.
but you're steadying the ship, the foundation of it, because now you can actually land a piece of business, and you have complementary work to help support it, and so now you can build that together. It is a harder way, or maybe a longer way, to do it, but I do think the fruits are more advantageous because a lot of times you also see sometimes it's the bigger companies, they win a piece of business, they come in, they never really water the grass in that area, and they rely upon that one, maybe two contracts,
hmm
and they lose it, and all of a sudden they got to leave out the market. They've got to get out of a lease that they've been locked into. It's a whole different situation. Whereas you can maybe lose a piece of business here now, the way you set up, and business will keep going on.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. And that was one of the things I learned from our adventures in the, Stewart area.
Mm-hmm.
We did have a warehouse there. We were a little locked in. So even, as things are starting to slow down, we're still doling out that money.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, well, maybe we don't get our own warehouse to begin with. We know people in the industry. We're friends with people in the industry. We're friendly competitors, right?
Yeah.
So I found a company up here online, came by, had talks with them. Things were seeming to go great. They had vehicles already on board. They were basically just an extension of me. Their level of service was not up to my standards.
Mm.
It was pulling teeth. They left a few things on the dock when they needed to be delivered.
Mm-hmm.
I don't roll that way.
Yeah.
So I said, guys, look, I appreciate it. If I have a delivery that comes up, I can give you a call, but I got to take the warehousing aspect elsewhere. Found a different partner.
Mm-hmm.
And everything was going well. He's really based in Atlanta. This was kind of it was just his Orlando office.
Mm-hmm.
He had one employee and about a 15,000 square foot warehouse. And that's really where I met my employee in Orlando now, Daniel. He was working there. They had been at Likes and he really got his feet wet there. Land Air, all those, well-known big names.
Mm-hmm.
So the guy definitely knew what he was doing.
Mm-hmm.
And one day the owner of that office came over and said, Mark, I lost this contract. He said, and that's really what's keeping me here in Orlando. Either, you take over my lease or, you got to find somewhere else. I said, well, I'm not in a position to take over anybody's lease right now.
Yeah.
I said, all right, I'm going to have to go elsewhere because I now have clients. I've got the warehouse, it's got some stuff in it.
Mm-hmm.
It also gave me an employee because I was already used to working with Daniel.
Yeah.
He certainly knows what he's doing.
Mm-hmm.
And we worked well together. So we ended up, I'm thinking about it for a couple of days. Where am I going to go? It's really when it first started to click that I'm kind of kicking myself now that I didn't just do it from the get-go. I reached out to Tom Jowers from ADL Final Mile. Shout out, Tom.
Shout out, TJ.
And I said, look, this is what I'm facing. I said, well, how much square footage do you need? Because my operation, is mostly overnight. And I said, if you can spare a couple thousand square feet, I said, that's enough to get me going. I said, okay. So for now, it's been about 8 months.
Okay.
I've been in-house with ADL Final Mile. My employee goes there every day. We've got access. We've got a couple dock doors. I've got storage capabilities, cross dock. I got a home base. And that's really what it's about, in having that trust factor, because I know, TJ and my dad go back. I couldn't even tell you how long. I won't call them out on their ages.
Yeah. He told me his age last night.
Did he?
I'm not going to call you out.
Yeah.
He still looks great. He looks great, actually.
He does, man. He looks fantastic.
Yeah.
I know he's really been starting to take care of himself, and it's just, I can be happier for him.
Yeah.
And it's just been a tremendous partnership.
Yeah.
There are a couple times where he said, hey, Mark, can you do this for me? TJ, whatever you need, man.
Yeah.
Hey, TJ, I need a little extra room here. Can you squeeze that? I can squeeze that. We're going to be tight.
Yeah. But let me, I'm going to highlight this for the folks in the audience who may not be picking up what you're saying. And there's a few companies that's doing this now too. So I'm glad to see you're also leveraging what I think is one of the most efficient and smart decisions, particularly in a business that's volatile with low margins, is when you're expanding to new markets. Instead of you going be the landlord and buying property, or certainly leasing property, getting into a long-term situation where look, we can sign multi-year contracts, but there's always a 30-day out clause that can leave you holding the bag.
Yep.
So you go leverage partnerships with existing providers who have their own footprint. You sublease space from them. So they're getting some additional rent, cover their costs, but now you have access to the resources that they have there. And then you can also probably pick up some deliveries that may not be a good fit for their network.
Exactly.
And so it's a great way to grow, to develop partnerships. And I think more people should be looking at doing that, particularly, when they're not quite settled with the customer and the new volume that they're getting. Right. Very smart.
And I want to get back to something that you just said, right? You said we're a low margin industry.
Yeah.
Why? Why are we a low margin industry?
Oh, you want me to answer?
Yeah, I do.
Oh, God. How much time we got left on? Man, I think that you gotta look inside the house first. And I think that we have not valued ourselves properly. I've said this before on the podcast. Look, I think there's obviously economic realities to what we do. We're not selling software here, but we are undervalued. And I think until we value ourselves properly, how dare us ask the outside community to value us? So, which is not it's going to be a plug for what I'm doing with the Huddle. I'm building out this platform. We've built it out. We've got 100 members today in there, and thank you. And it's all about trying to help raise the value of this industry. And we're doing something. We're going to be having some announcements coming soon, where we're going to help the industry really get some more transparency into what's happening, where we can all make these smarter decisions to raise the value. To the rising tide lifts all boats effect.
Yep.
But that's my thought. I think it's us, not them.
And I think it's a combination, especially in the last few years with all the roll-ups going on. It's been, how fast can I grow my revenue, not my profit, but my revenue, so that I look better to these larger companies that are going around buying everybody.
Yeah.
Right. It's people are starting to look for an exit, and it's detrimental to our generation because we're entering, we're not exiting.
Yeah. No, for sure. Good point. The problem with that is, but the reality is, like, when you trade companies in this space, like, I don't know if I heard of one. I've been a part of some of these, and I was aware of a lot of them that trade on the top line. They trade on EBITDA, and so yes, you're right. There is a revenue chase, and as we know, the PE game, and that is a real thing, and it is negatively impacting the industry. I think there's some certainly negative aspects of that. but the reason I say ourselves first, and this is my opinion, is that I look at other players in transportation. I'm talking about UPS, FedEx, even DHL. I guess you could put them in there. Can't say the post office because they can't figure out how to make money.
Figure out how to make money. Dude, they can't deliver something from Miami to Fort Lauderdale without it getting lost.
Yeah.
I'm not joking. I sent something from Miami to Orlando, and I tracked it. It went to Texas. Then it went to, where'd it go? It went to Atlanta. Then it came back down to Orlando.
What is going on? I have no idea. Yeah, I wish them well.
Yeah.
But I see these other providers, and they seem to be able to say, this is what we value ourselves at. We're in alignment here. I won't use the other word. We're in alignment here on how we set these rates. And, it's kind of like deal with it to the market. And there's some reasons they have advantages over us to do that, right? There's 2 or 3 of them versus hundreds of us. But there's a confidence to have, and they're like, hey, we know our value, and we're gonna hold it, and everyone seems to be doing that. So if we can get on board with that to some degree, I think that would help us a lot. I want to move on to the question I ask all our guests as we wrap up, which is about the Last2First moment. You've had a hell of a journey already, and you're, like you said, just getting ready to get started, right? You're just getting your hands on this thing yourself, so you're excited. So you probably got a ways to go if you can really give us your full Last2First. But up to this point, right? What would be that moment for you where you have essentially gone Last2First, right? You made a decision, something happened where it put you on the path to where you are today.
I think it's finally having that belief in myself, right? I've had that coach by my side, stuck to my side for my entire adult, career. So close that the office that we're in now, there was an office here, a wall, another office. We moved into that office, that wall in the middle got broken down. Okay. And there got a door put in.
Mm-hmm.
So that way my dad was here.
Mm-hmm.
I was here.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I'm listening to him. He's listening to me. But when it was finally my time, knowing that I could do it,
mm-hmm.
That I had that knowledge because I'd been working with him, I took that.
Mm-hmm.
And now, like you said, Last2First, because going from the bottom to now the top, everybody's relying on you.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't believe in yourself, who's going to? So I think that was big for me, was knowing and finally believing myself, having that inner strength.
Yep.
It's been a journey. Haven't always been the most confident person in the world. And it was just, I think that's really it.
Yeah. Like, man, I think that's a lot. And I think that's a lot of people struggle to get to that point. So, congratulations for you. I'm excited for the future and what you're building. Obviously, many good things ahead. Already spans new markets, profitably in the first year, and building on a legacy and a history that is, as you said earlier, you corrected me correctly when you said it's not something, it's everything. And I think that's the important thing about what you're doing and what this industry does, is that I think there's a tremendous amount of good people that want to do the right thing, and we hope we can find these partners that value our services. So, Mark, congratulations on the takeover on version 2 of Common Delivery, coming to a city near you. But I appreciate you coming on the podcast, man, and appreciate your support, and best of luck going forward.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. All right, Last2First family. That was Mark Seltzer, president of Common Delivery Services, based in Miami, expanded to Orlando recently. On Last2First Podcast, you need help in those markets, reach out to them. I'm Jason Burns. We're out. Peace.